Hello and welcome to Circle Passages and Higher Ground. And actually today what we're going to be talking about, mystical experiences, visions, and whatever magic kind of happens. And just listening to the opening, the music. So a co-worker playing native flute. And each time we'd have a show, would ask him, would you bring one of your instruments, and he would, and play a little bit. One time he brought in a didgeridoo, and he's got a small car, so that was kind of cool just to see him take this thing out of the car. So I don't know, I guess that was, excuse me, a magical moment of sorts. And let me jump in if you don't mind. A couple weeks ago, I spent several days at the Badlands and the Black Hills in South Dakota. And I've been there a number of times, but this one, there was something that took place that was, wow, it's like, I've not felt this before. So the first day I get to Rapid City, and that day I usually go up to Crazy Horse Monument, and they've got an incredible museum, gift shop, and of course the monument itself that they're working on. But there's some artwork that this gentleman has been working on. So this is just, I kind of cropped it and then enlarged this, but this is Mystic. So I visited with Mystic the day before I headed out to the Badlands. I wasn't really consciously thinking about that, but we were visiting. This has been my Mystic for many, many years. So I feel like, in fact, you asked for kind of like a bio, and I was thinking, well, I'm an apprentice to this Mystic. So we connected. So I think really what he was doing was kind of setting a tone. And I didn't realize this until the next day. So I drive to the Badlands, and pretty long park. And I usually will go first because that's the first section you get into, but it's not even so much that it's the first section, but it's called Sage Creek. So it's a dirt road for quite some time, say 10, 12 miles. And as I turn onto the dirt road, and Sage Creek it's a meandering road, kind of up and down stuff, but that's where Tatanka is, where buffalo hangs out, and about 1,000 in the park, and most of them are down at this one area. And I've not seen them quite that plentiful, but as soon as I turned and I was listening to this music, and made that turn, heading toward Sage Creek, and it felt like, it's kind of like you step into a shower, but instead of the water hitting me, it was like spirit hitting me, and just thought, whoa, what is this? It was incredible, and just listening to this incredible music, and probably within, I don't know, maybe 50 yards or so, there's first sighting 2 or 3 Tatanka off to the side of the road, and just stopping the car to kind of pay reverence. And I was down there probably for a couple of hours, but it was like this feeling was right there throughout the whole time. And again, kind of meandering, going along the road. One part, Sage Creek does that too. It's going through all over that section of the park, and Tatankas everywhere. They're just hanging out, which is so wonderful. No cages, none of that stuff. They're roaming free. So I usually stop, and there's this one bridge One stopped at on the other side of it, get out of the car, because a couple of Tatanka there want to take some footage, because somebody here had mentioned, are you going to take any video on this trip? And I said, well, usually I take photos, but yeah, I'm going to take some video. And as I'm doing that, I'm on the other side of the bridge, and there were just, it seemed like hundreds of swallows that came up, and they're swarming all over, and of course a lot of chatter, swallow talk, I guess. And it was afterwards that I realized, well, under the bridge is probably where their nest is. And I don't know if I was intruding or what it was, but I was hoping that you guys coming out to play. If you can play with Tatanka, hopefully you can play with this two-legged guy. But, so, you know, and it's like this experience just was continuing, and I certainly wasn't trying to do anything to tone it down, just let it run, let it go its, the way it's going to go, and still heading over. So right where this bridge is, it's maybe half a mile to where the campground is, so circular campground. And this is the first time I've seen this. Again, Tatanka are all over the place, but not in huge numbers, but in this circle, so there are probably about 8-10 campsites right there. People are camping, and there are about 5 or 6 buffalo, Tatanka, just off the road, and I've not seen them right in camp. Some of them laying down, some of them are standing, and I kind of went around the bend, and I stopped, and I looked back, and I see this dog, and I'm thinking, how come that dog's not just going bananas with, this is not something you run into every day, Tatanka. But it's like the people were fine, the critters were fine, the dogs, and Tatanka was fine. It was just incredible. So I came around after spending some time down here to head to the rest of the park, and always felt like this is like driving at the bottom of Grand Canyon with the formations, the colors, and just a real enjoyable piece. But this same feeling, this energy was throughout the whole day. You know, just that was something I hadn't. I mean, I've always been, I don't know, felt really good about being there, but not quite to this extent. This was very special. So, and again, the music, all of it, everything, just all of it came together, and it was, what a day, what a day.
Yeah. I knew it was great when you said it was the best trip ever, I think. And,
yes.
You know, the spirit shower is so evocative, but also Tatanka, anybody who knows you knows, you know, what a powerful, meaningful, living being and symbol Tatanka is to you.
Yes. Well, the Lakota right there, the Sioux Lakota, and picked up this book some years ago about Tatanka and the creation story. So the Lakota were living in the earth, under the earth, and they wanted to come out to the surface. And Tatanka, Great Spirit, pretty much saying, you know, there's stuff up there that you may not want. You know, once you get up there, you're gonna see. So you may want to just kind of hang out right here. And you know, it's obviously kind of the Cliff Note version of the story, but the Lakota they were pretty insistent. We're going. Tatanka says, okay, well, I'll lead you. And got to the surface, and then pretty much until, unfortunately, white people came on the scene and started just massacring the Tatanka. That was how people, and not just the Lakota, all of the indigenous, that was for so many things. And they would use every part of the buffalo, apparently, so nothing was going to waste. And every day, not just to eat, but clothing, you name it, tools, bones and horns and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess that really resonated with me long time ago, of just what a noble creature to roam this earth. And it's always a treat to be in their presence. But yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think so much of it makes me think of lots of things. Even the concept of like self-generated ceremony. So much of it is around you individually, and like what you find powerful. And Tatanka is. I think that the second point I was going to say is I think a lot of it doesn't have to be, but almost always seems like nature or the natural world, animals, maybe being out camping. I don't know. I feel like it's hard to find those mystic, really deep, memorable experiences in that sort of way that feel, I don't know, spiritually resonant or whatever you want to call it. I feel like so often it's just, you got to really get out there. And that's part of the reason why I think Rites of Passage helps do things like that is it just really gets you out there, and it makes you reconnect with the natural world. While you were talking, it made me think of Larry, who led us on the Rite of Passage, had the two teachers, Stephen Little, Meredith Foster, who helped kind of show him the Rites of Passage ceremony. But I remember Larry saying a couple of times that something that Stephen would say to him was that this great lie is that we are something totally separate and distinct from the natural world. And I think, not to go too deep, but I think that's part of where the removal of that like spiritual depth has come from. You separate yourself from everything else that's living around us, and it's no wonder that people don't feel that resonance as much as maybe they would if they were living out on the land. So yeah, I think so much of it, nature is so important in that, and then a lot of it is different people find different. I remember, again, I'm rambling, but one of the things that makes me think of is I went camping last year, last fall maybe, after our Rite of Passage, and I had this incense that Kurt, one of the people, and now I'm throwing names out there, but who none of these people will know, but he gave me this incense stick that he had gotten from somebody who handmade it in the mountains of central Mexico, and I've never been to central Mexico or anything like that, but I was out in the Olympics, and I was burning. I had created a little circle, and I was burning incense, and I was sitting on my yoga mat, kind of meditating, whatever you want to call it, and just a osprey swooped on the lake I was on. Didn't even grab a fish, but just swooped really low to the ground, and then took off. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's, you can find meaning in all sorts of things. But when you're really sitting there and you've got intention and you're kind of out in nature, I don't know. I just think nature has a way of kind of just like, not blowing your mind, but really bringing the like depth and reminding you of like simultaneously, and again, maybe I'm rambling, but like how small you are, yet how a part of everything you are. It's like that beautiful duality, I think, is like, has a tendency to make me at least get like deep and be like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful world we live in. But yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You remind me, Jord, on, contemplating what moment to pick. It is the consciousness, like the vision, if we have eyes to see, the vision and the consciousness we bring to the moment. And my moment is like such a simple moment. It's, I think of Monty Python, those, the clouds part, but it's that for you. Like someone else seeing the same thing might just see something totally different. But for me, the third night of the Rite of Passage, where that liminal threshold space, you're about to re-enter the circle and re-enter community and come back, so to speak. And that dawn, the last morning, just cracked me open. And so it was my own, Monty Python experience. But I felt like in that moment, you say spiritual shower, but there's these things can be conveyed that are in a way transcendent and then also immanent. They're more real than real. And so it was like in the sunrise, I felt this palpable presence and renewal, and even that identity and calling of who are you, what are you doing? Hope, bring hope to the world, and that I needed to restore hope, and that I had lost hope. And, so like it's almost like too in these moments, there's this stilling of time, and people talk about downloads or different things, but you have this revelation in a sense that a number of things that are all revealed in often just this really, like the osprey or the spiritual shower or the buffalo or the sunrise. Like, how many sunrises have we seen? Yeah. But that sunrise kind of told me, you carry hope. You learn something new about yourself and about the world and your relationship to the world. And it redefines you in a way. And that's quite a gift, is, to give you a new beginning in a sense.
So cool too that's at the end of the 3-day fast and being out by yourself in nature, and it's like, I pay my dues, and damn.
Yeah, and that it is natural. Like, I remember where we get to go and where we went, where we get to go with you, whoever you are. I think it's intentional. You're out with the grass that sounds like rattlesnakes and things, So at first, I think this is intentional. They're triggering you, And so at first I was heightened alertness, And then at the end I think I was like humming and maybe just literally singing words to the grass, because you're in this different state by the end of the 3rd day. And when that sun comes, you're in a place you've never been to before inside yourself.
Yeah. Pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something you said, Mom, that just got me thinking is the self-generated aspect of it, I think, is so important in moments like this. And not that other people wouldn't get something from that same experience, but I think, you said, sometimes you might have an experience that feels mystical and deep in all these ways, and somebody else could have that same experience or watch it makes me think of, and it wouldn't be that to them. It makes me think of, I had experiences when I was on the Rite of Passage. It's the definition of self-generated ceremony, why you're doing it. But I was like, it's funny, I reflect on it, and I'm like, man, people would just think I was crazy if they just watched me. They just think I was a lunatic. But especially some of the experiences, and they were just so profound to me. And even if I would describe them, like one, because whatever, it doesn't make me feel awkward or anything, but it just wouldn't make sense to a lot of people. But I had this experience. One of the things I was thinking a lot about when I was on the Rite of Passage, I was doing a lot of stuff growing for myself, and I had a lot of issues with mental health. But my beautiful mother here had cancer, which she was dealing with, and my grandfather, who has now passed, was about to pass. I don't think that's too crazy to say that. He was, a month or two before he did eventually pass. And so one of the things I was doing, and again, this just sounds like total lunacy, but I did this thing where one of the self-generated ceremonies I did, and they didn't even tell us. I think they may have said something about this, but they didn't describe how to do it or anything like that, but it just all felt right to me. But I sat and I wrote a letter to my dying grandfather, which was amazing. That makes sense to everybody. But then I went on a walk with, theoretically, but I literally walked with my hand out with a younger 5-year-old version of me. It's like what I was doing in my mind. And I was literally having a conversation with him. I don't know, doesn't seem like it makes sense. And again, if people saw me, they would think I was a loony, which is fine. It's all good. I don't mind the opinions of other people, but it was literally me speaking out loud, and then in my head it was immediately, it wasn't even like I was thinking it, it was speaking out loud and then hearing a younger me's voice. And it was this deep experience where I was explaining to, because my grandfather was about to pass away, so I was explaining to basically a really young me what death is and why people die and why, the beauty and all of that, and that it's okay, and that he might reincarnate or all. Anyways, I had this long conversation with myself where I was explaining to a 5-year-old me what death is and why your grandpa's passing away and what that means and all this stuff. And it just makes me think, as you say, I don't know, it doesn't have to make sense to other people, I guess is what I'm getting towards saying. And not oh, my experience is awesome, you just don't get it. It's not like that. It's not even really about that. It's just about pulling from these experiences something deep and something powerful, and that not like I'm trying to lecture to anyone, but people don't have to get it almost. And it's not like a egotistical thing. It's like these experiences, a lot of them, especially when you're doing self-generated ceremony, it's like, it's just not gonna make sense to other people. And that doesn't mean that it's not gonna be super powerful for you. You know, like you're talking about, Mom, it's like, you could see a million sunrises, but, and partially it's because you've been on the land for those 3 days and all those things, but it's like, I don't know, it's almost, I remember coming back from the experience and them talking about, how you talk to people about the rite of passage experience, because a lot of people just aren't going to get it. That just at first a lot of things won't make sense. Like if I said I went on a walk with a young me and I explained to him death, they'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. But I don't know, it's almost like you don't have to explain to people why it is what it is to you. And again, this isn't like a lecture to anybody, but I don't know, I just think that's so important to say, where that people have a tendency, because especially in the modern age of science and technology and all this stuff, like we're all skeptics, especially when it comes to the spiritual, the woo-woo, whatever you want to call it. Like we're all skeptics. And I was huge skeptic. That's part of the reason, I was hesitant to even go. And as I'm going, I'm like, self-generated ceremony, what does that mean? I'm just going to do all this stuff. This isn't going to be powerful. And then it's like, all of these experiences that I did along the way were like ridiculously impactful to me. And if I were to explain them to people, they wouldn't make sense. And that's okay. Like I think understanding that like it doesn't have to mean it, like the experiences you have aren't going to be impactful for everybody, kind of like you were saying, Mom. And I actually think there's something beautiful in that like it is, I don't know, like that it was intended to mean what it meant to you, and it doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. And I don't know, I wanted to say that because I really feel like there is such a tendency to, like you hear somebody else describe a spiritual mystic experience they had, and I think almost all of us, because we live with cell phones and technology and science and all this stuff, there's a tendency to just be like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense, or that doesn't make sense, or that was powerful to you, that's dumb. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost like until you have an experience like that, it won't make sense. And once you do, you're like, okay, that was kind of dumb, but that was also one of the like coolest experiences I've ever had. So I don't know, I think there's something so beautiful in that. And that's when I think of the term self-generated ceremony, that's almost the first thing I think of, is like something that is super meaningful to you, but might not be to anybody else in any capacity. And I just think that's one of the coolest parts about it, is that, it hits you where it hits you, how it hits you, when it hits you, exactly the way it's supposed to. Like the whole thing they say on the Rite of Passage is like, your story is perfect. The story is perfect. And it's like, it hits you exactly the way it's supposed to hit you. And when it really hits you hard, you kind of know it. And you don't need to explain it. And you couldn't even if you had to. Like literally, you couldn't even, like if I had to describe my emotions, it'd be like, why? But it's not about any of that. It's not about explaining it. It's just about feeling it and just being really resonant with that experience. And I just think there's something so beautiful to that.
That's the cool thing about Rites of Passage, Vision Quest. It's your journey, right? The
Right.
individual's journey.
Exactly. Right.
So what are you up for?
Right.
Call on it.
And your story is perfect. The language it comes to you is perfect. And that's also what I think is perfect, is that it doesn't, spirit I know can be threatening to different people, or soul is psyche from psychology. Spirit means pneumen or breath. Who doesn't breathe? I mean, I don't know. I think we've separated ourselves off, and we've divided and done these different things where when you get out in nature, it's just natural. And I've had visions. George was teeny tiny, but I had a vision happen about what was going to happen the next day that saved my life, because I saw how someone was going to attack me. So I've had enough intersections in my life too that I take them seriously. But when you really have one of those meaningful moments, self-generated rituals, and one of my rituals was, I was so tired I just flipped over a stone with my foot. I didn't even bend down. But because it doesn't matter. It's about, the meaning that you feel inside of you. But also you know it, and the language is perfect. So, that's the part that makes me feel good about offering Rites of Passage, is I know that what is going to show up for people is perfect for them. And nobody has to do anything to have it happen. You know, I've gone on walks where the myth was about a pomegranate, and once I went to the beach and there was a pomegranate. It was just like, of course there's a pomegranate. You know, I mean, it's just because, you know, we don't even have to try. It just will work its way out, you know.
Yeah. No, and just being open to it and accepting it how it is. And then, yeah, no, I think it's, I don't know, yeah, it's funny because it's hard to even kind of explain like why or how you have the experiences. But yeah, I just think there's something so beautiful to the way it happens. And one of the things I was going to say, as you were talking a second ago too, is maybe because I like camping and I like being outdoor, and maybe this is just me, I'm open-minded to that, but I actually feel like that some of that skepticism fades a bit as you separate yourself, or, you know, separate yourself from your normal life, return to the nature. At least for me, in the Rite of Passage, it's almost like, I think that like our modern lives almost have a tendency to make us more skeptical and less open to like receiving the messages that you're getting, where, I don't know, maybe it's just because you're tired and you're hungry, but you go out there, I don't know, but it's not that though, because I've had similar experiences when I'm just camping, and I think nature is a huge part of it, but I don't know, when you don't have your phone and you don't have all the stimulus of your regular life and all this stuff, I don't know, I find that you just get more open to receiving the like messages of the universe. And I know that sounds like, but it's true. And I really feel like part of that is just reconnecting with nature and understanding that like, there's just amazing things happening all the time. You know, there's beautiful things like, I don't know, like little things that just don't seem like a big deal. But if you're paying attention, you know, like I had when I was out on the land or whatever, I had the same, it might not have even been the same bird. I have no idea. But there was a bird that would like land at a similar time in the evening where I was sitting, and it would like land in the same spot all the time. And that would just be the same type of thing where it's like, that's not a big deal. But I don't know, the more you get, and maybe it's just because you're bored and you don't have as much stimulus, but you just notice more stuff when you're out there. And like you say, you get this heightened sense of awareness, especially at first, where, yeah, I just think you leave the cell phone and all this stuff away, and I just think it makes you more open to receiving, whether or not people, you know, would use the same language or rhetoric themselves. I just think it makes you more open to receive the messages of the universe. And I don't know, it also makes me wonder why we're all actively closing ourselves off to that all the time. But I think there's something like, you know, you remove the stimulus and you get out in nature, I just think you're more prone to receive those messages and be open to what's out there.
One of the things they say is, you know, be present, and to whatever extent you can be prepared for what shows up, because that's one of the things you are saying by showing up for the Rite of Passage, is that you're present for the present, but also, you know, it may feel like the gift you want to return to sender.
Yeah.
And I know for me, it surprised me, but when I went, my, at the time, stepmother, who has mental illness, she showed up. And so, you know, in whatever, however you want to say that, you know, and because it was a healing that needed to take place. Because part of what you're doing is you're making yourself available. Rumi said, the wound is where the light enters. You're really healing yourself. But you're also, as you heal yourself, you heal your lineage, you heal your family, you heal your community. It ripples out. And so I think because I had that intention to heal, and even heal my maternal line, she showed up. And so part of it is we don't have our cell phone, but also part of it is, you know, saying yes to a rite of passage is saying yes to a transformation. It's a journey, and it is going to go somewhere, you know, and so, and it's not just you. That's the other part, is that you go as a part of a family and a community, and we have that as part of our rites of passage because it's just also true. And so part of the opportunity is that, you know, the more we heal, the more we all heal. And so it's amazing whether it's a bird or, you know, however it is that people see symbols, and it's an amazing opportunity for ourselves and others.
Definitely. And, kind of starting with the circle at the beginning of the Rites of Passage, that's really cool too, is where we, not familiar with the others, there were 8 in our group, let's say, but almost immediately you drop all those pretenses and we're all there for the same thing, but it's kind of preparing for what's going to happen a couple days later when you go out for 3 days on your own, isn't it? To be held in that circle and everybody's really kind of, whether you're saying it verbally or not, we're all working together, we're cheering for one another. I really hope this is going to be an incredible experience for you. So you're really setting yourself up, aren't you? Wow.
Yeah. No, it's like moving your brain towards, like one of the things you do is you do the mirroring when you get there and you sit, like we talked about earlier, you sit and you have these deep, meaningful conversations and, you're not even really talking about what you're going to do out on the land at that point, yet you're talking about why are you here? Because, we haven't even really said it explicitly as much, but like one of the reasons, you're on the Rite of Passage is because at some point you've self-reflected and been like, well, this is something I want to leave behind or something I want to move towards or I want to heal. And so I think part of it is just sitting and having that, mirroring, but sitting in circle and having those conversations where, I can just I'll use my own experience, but, I was depressed and my mother had cancer and my grandfather was about to die. And not like, it has to be like everybody in tears, but it almost preps you for this really deep experience where you really quickly are like dropped in. I'd almost be curious. I'm no neuroscientist, but I'm almost curious like what parts of your brain are activated during experiences like this, because I don't know, I almost feel like it's like moving you into a psychological state that allows you to receive all this stuff. And it's really, why we all like Rite of Passage and why we're doing it. It's like designed and has been used for thousands of years to put you in that state where you're ready to receive, okay, who am I? What am I supposed to do? I'm bringing hope to people or whatever that looks like. It's like you're psychologically preparing yourself for that, like you said, as soon as you arrive, it's like you're warming up for I play soccer. It's like you're warming up for a soccer game, but it's like you're warming yourself up psychologically to be in this space where you're ready to receive all these things, and like we're saying, it's like it's really necessary to be there because, like if you took me and my regular day-to-day life on my phone, whatever it is, and you just dropped me into the spot where I was camping, I don't think that I would pull, I like to think I would pull things from it, but it probably wouldn't have had this deep meaning that it did because you're in this state where you're emotionally kind of raw and you're ready for, and you're thinking about your intention and what I'm trying to do here, and I think that whole state of getting you ready is so valuable. That's why Rite of Passage is necessary, again, because if it was just as easy as like, go camping, it'll change your life. A lot of people should go camping, but like, if it was as easy as like, go camping and it'll change your life and you'll have this unbelievable experience, it's almost like we talked about earlier, it's like, it can't be that easy. You don't grow from things that are that easy. It's got to be kind of uncomfortable. You got to talk about things that are deep and hear other people talk about things that are deep, and all that preps you for this experience that will be really meaningful and impactful.
Well, it allows us to, we've really been speaking to it, but mind, body, spirit, right? Is to really tune in to that, kind of feel this is what this is about. And let me just be open to what is presented to me during this 8 days, and especially those 3 days out, right? So the mind, body, spirit, like you said, or psyche, what's going on physically that allows me to do this. So of course, spirit's there too, and the body's obviously. I know it wasn't easy to me. I was kind of freaking out the month before we were going to 3 days fasting. I've not done that before. So I need to kind of get in some training for this.
We do have nutrition as part of our, we do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that bad.
No,
at
Not
all.
as bad.
no.
It's never as bad as you think it is.
No,
Yeah.
of course.
But
Yeah.
no,
But-
and everybody's safe and everything. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so you are in a place where in your brain state where you aren't tracking time in the same way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and people like the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung said, the soul isn't bound by time and space. Again, soul, psyche, spirit, breath, these natural parts of us. And so the liminal space, liminal means threshold, when we are in circle, remember how they ushered us out and usher us back in. You're going outside of time and you're coming back in. And that's where like this circle, crazy circular year dance through the coronavirus has also felt really liminal in terms of being a time outside of time. And I guess an interesting question, I had cancer, so I was focused, I guess, on mystical experiences because I was going through that. But, a thing for people to think about is, what are the mystical experiences, especially in things like this last year, because we don't think of it as that Monty Python, sun breaking through the clouds moment.
And yet, that crisis, I recall, because it was March, we started to make our own drums, thanks to Lori leading the way. And that was the most exciting year that I could remember ever. It's like, how can I be feeling this when there's this other stuff going on, this pandemic that's turning everything upside down? But that's really what it was, and just really enjoying it. But it's not the pandemic, but this other journey.
Yeah, and deep meaning. Honestly, it was the most meaningful year of my life. And even when we were doing the drums, it was Easter, and that's that whole death and rebirth. Obviously, dark night of the soul symbolism right there. And I remember I had a breakthrough in a dream and different things. So it's almost like our lives are rites of passage. Obviously, if we tune in with that state of consciousness, the meaning is there for us to mine and harvest at all moments. But we just don't tune in until we're on Cluckham Ridge or, way out in the middle of nowhere.
So it sounds like we're going to get a chance to do that.
Yeah, you know what, I was going to bring that up, that it's land walked for this intended purpose for over 10,000 years. And so you were talking about, in a way, being primed for transformation. That land has that potential, and really we're being held and circled by the land, collaborating, being initiated in a way by the land. So that land, I think, is really powerful for that. And even that we drive to go there, it's kind of like a pilgrimage. You go, and you're...
The preparation,
Yeah, you're being prepared.
Yeah. And the land, and it's the spirit of that 10,000 years. I think that's what's so cool. That you can feel it. It's there, right? And it's like, okay, this is 2020 at the time, 2019 for you, but 10,000 years ago. This is during that time. This is what folks were doing, what the indigenous were doing in that same area. So it just felt so special to be a part of that.
Right.
Wow. It's like we're continuing this ceremony, the tradition.
Yeah,
Rituals.
and I'm sure it's not lost on everyone that the stripped down rite of passage, when we're out on the field and the wind would come through and, you'd watch sunrises and sunsets because you're just out there, but it's so primal and, perennial. It's how it's been done forever, because that's the beauty, is all these, in a way, falsehoods and trappings are stripped away, and you just have this raw experience. And that's why I think it tunes you into who you are so quickly, because everything else falls away and you're in this primordial experience.
I was talking about earlier, I was kind of concerned about the fasting part. Well, during that 3 days, it was like I'm not hungry at all. We were able to drink water, and that sustained me. And I remember thinking about some teenagers that I had worked with before with eating challenges, and that's what they would do, was load up on water. And so it was kind of like, well, in an unfortunate way, it was working for them, but it worked for me too, where I didn't need the food. So almost like that third day or the fourth day, after the third day, whatever it is, when we go back in, right, we get to eat. And it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
how about if we continue this, just stretch the fasting a little bit more?
Yeah. But that's okay to state the obvious. It's a pattern break. And that's why it's, those stages of severance or separation and what I call transformation and initiation. But how many of us want a chance to leave something behind, and to go to neutral and reset and move in a new, more conscious way and direction? That's such a powerful thing to have, that kind of pattern break, to include technology, dare I say addiction, all of us, to not have a phone for like 9 days or something is really good for us, but really strange, almost for any Western human, or maybe even any human at this point.
Yeah, it is, like you said, it's like a hard reset. It is. It's like, you could have a device, like I'm sure we all have devices at home that like stay on even when they're like turned off, whatever. They're still plugged in, they're still power. It's almost like plugging it out of the wall and putting it back in, where it's like
a reboot.
Yeah, it's like a hard reset. It's like not just like, okay, the screen, I move my computer around and it like resets. Like every day, you go to sleep and you wake up and you're like reset, and every day is a new day. And I believe that. I'm not trying to downplay that. But it's not a reset. This is like a hard reset. Like every day is a new day, but if you ate a bunch of junk food last night, you're gonna feel it in the morning. It's not a full reset, where this is like we're gonna clean everything out of your body. We're not gonna eat anything, so everything's getting cleaned out of your body, and you're putting all the technology aside, and it's like a hard reset to an extent that most people don't do like throughout their whole lives, or would only do when they move to a new city or something like that. It's like I would argue it's different than moving to a new city, because I came back to the same house, so people would be like, what kind of moving would be a bigger reset? But I don't know, it's different. It's like a reset of yourself. It's not just I'm resetting the environment I'm in, because you can move or do whatever, but you might feel the same. It's like this internal hard reset where there's just so much opportunity in that. Not just like, okay, cool, now my habits are going to be better when I go back to it, but during that, it's like an opportunity to like actually assess self and how am I doing and all this stuff. I just think I hadn't even really thought about it that way before, but it's like a super hard reset.
That's a great way to think of it.
It is, and it's there's so many parts.
Right? All that, like you said, the cleaning out.
So much of it, the mentally and physically, like we all don't even realize it, but we have all sorts of, probably, unless you're like have the best diet of all time, but we all have all sorts of inflammation and things that we eat and whatever it is, and maybe we don't sleep as enough, but all that stuff aside, it's physically, mentally, spiritually this hard reset where not only is everything reset, but you also get this period. It's not just like if you could snap and reset either. It's better than that, in that like it's like turning off for a couple of days and then turning back on, where a reset where you get to consciously think, how am I resetting? Why am I resetting? What does that mean? What am I going to do going forward? What am I leaving behind? It's like it's this really intentional thing as well, where it's just, I don't know, it's awesome. I just think it would be good for a lot of people, even if they didn't have all sorts of things. I think it'd be beneficial for literally everybody, even if everything was going great for you in your life, in every way, which I don't know if there's anybody who's going great in every way. Hopefully, fingers crossed, me when I'm old. But I think everybody could benefit from it, because like we're saying, there's so many parts of it that are valuable physically, mentally, spiritually.
And you know, you're making me think, obviously, rites of passage are these major life steps on our journey. But the reason they're so important, these rites of passage, is it's almost like you get to this milestone, and where do you go next? You know, and especially when I think of the youth and young people, when we did the rite of passage at the beach with you guys, and we stepped into circle, I realized how, as a parent, I wasn't holding an equal circle. We weren't on equal footing. And when we came, we reset the circle, or youth coming into rites of passage, and you get to think, who am I distinct from what my parents think I should be, or what my society thinks I should be, or, you know, like, what even are the stories? Like, there's that saying, find yourself and find your way. You're coming home to yourself. So, I mean, the interesting thing is you're being able to be with yourself, where you're shedding that detox of not only, you know, the donut you had, but like all of the conditioning that we've had. And it's just crazy, the layers of conditioning, not just from parents, but from commercials. And, you know, like, our society is built on this concept that you aren't enough and you can't be enough. Well, oh my God, what a crazy self-defeating, you know, rat race that one is. You know, so to be able to strip away, and I always say it's like being able to then figure out what ladder you want to climb, or, you know, what path is yours? Like, what direction do you really want to go?
You know what? This sounds like fodder for the next show.
Yeah, there we go.
For sure. Don't mean to cut you short, but we're about at that time. So thank you once again for sharing these experiences. Yeah. But seriously, let's come back to.
Okay, we've got our next step.
Put a pin in it.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you too for tuning in, and enjoyed this. Wow. It's amazing how